Thank you very much. I enjoyed your talk. Something's happening here. Okay, I'm just going to start talking whilst my computer adjusts. Needs to be a bit smaller on the screen. Okay.
We have a magic button on the...
Oh, there we go. I'm going to present today in 3 parts. I actually discovered when I got here that it's only 15 minutes I'm talking, so I'm either going to talk less or talk faster. I'm going to choose. And I'm showing you work that I've been doing for the last 4 years. And I guess I trained as a classical ballerina, which I think is really important to my work, and inherently most of my work, if not all of my work, is fascinating with the human body. And I started working as a body architect at Philips Design, and I did work in a team called the Probes Program, and this is looking 15 to 20 years into the future, trying to understand what lifestyles are like that far ahead and then kind of working backwards. And the electronic tattoo was a project that started, sort of the way that we started working was by looking at trends, and this started by looking at 2 trends which we overlapped. At the end of 2000, kids across the world were not tattooing their bodies with a little dolphin on their lower back or a purple on their stomach. It was really tattooing their bodies from head to toe. And at the same time this was happening in the medical world, people were swallowing heart rate sensors, exploring into swallowable technology, electronic suppositories. So what we wanted to know is what happened when these 2 trends overlap with each other. So we made a movie called The Electronic Tattoo, and you can see this on YouTube. But I have to be fast, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. Within the Probes team, there's different areas that you can work in. Some of it's vehicle design, architecture, and I was always based on projects around the skin. So we kind of used skin as a dynamic model to start from. This particular project was part of an EU project called Stella, and Stella is a project developing stretchable, flexible electronic substrates which are transparent and which stick to your skin like a plaster when you've hurt yourself, like a Band-Aid. So this is starting to look at how actually jewelry, we were really interested in jewelry, how jewelry can become something else if you impregnate it with technology. So we were covering all different types of demographics and thinking about different subcultures. And actually this one was to be used in a hospital for the older generation. This one was more the kind of Nike culture. And we also did one for children, which was called the Philips Pet. Was sort of like the idea of an electronic Tamagotchi. So the child would wear it on their hand and it would be sensing activity, so accelerometer, sun exposure, so UV exposure, and also water intake. And the idea is that when the child hasn't been moving around much, the little Tamagotchi's eyes start closing, or when it hasn't drunk any water, the belly becomes empty, and the ears become burnt when it's had too much sun. And I actually talked at a jewelry symposium in Germany, and one Belgian guy put up his hand and he's like, "This is bullshit. Why would I want to give this to my child? I know if my child is thirsty. I know if it's getting fat." And this is exactly the kind of discussion that we're trying to prompt, is trying to understand what people want, what technologies are really relevant to the lifestyles in 15 to 20 years, and then from there, Philips can start carving out new business applications. So that's sort of one of the reasons why we do this work. These are just some kind of behind the scenes. Actually, Michelle has sent me an email saying, you know, maybe you did some dancing with Bart when you started a project. And I was like, well, I didn't do it with Bart, but I did it whilst I was at Philips. And this here is my friend Sita. She's a fashion designer from Antwerp. And this was actually one evening that started this whole idea around the blushing dresses. And I had this idea, it's like, I know what we're going to do. We're going to sew 2 lycra sacks. I'm going to get in one, you're going to get in the other, and we're just going to like wind our bodies around each other. And we did that for about 2 hours. And then Clive, my boss at the time, came in. He was like, wow, this is great, this is fantastic, and started taking pictures. And actually this is where the bubble dress started, bizarrely enough. And also what we do, or what we did a lot, was this idea of digital draping. And digital draping is projecting images or movies onto the body and seeing how that morphs or changes the silhouette of the body. And it's really actually fascinating. I don't know if anybody has ever projected a movie. I actually projected one on the back of my neck, and without seeing this projection on the back of your neck, you could feel it moving purely because of the heat. So these kind of weird subliminal experiments that we're doing visual experiments, but then subliminal things start to happen, so it starts to make you think. And the blushing dresses were part of a collection. We actually wanted to make 8 dresses. We made 2 because none of us had ever done this before. But what we were trying to understand was what's happening on a physiological level when you kiss somebody for the first time. What's the exhilaration of a first kiss? And how can you actually sense that? And the fact is that you can't sense emotions, you can only sense rates of change. And this is currently being developed further in Philip's research. They've now set up 10 scientists with an emotional sensing lab, so they're starting to investigate how we actually can sense emotions, which is quite scary. So what we were looking at is sensing different rates of change, and you do that with 5 different technologies. But what's happening here on the blushing dress is we have heart rate sensors on the body, and these are connected to 15 tiny LED projectors, which are simulating or emulating the wearer's emotions. So if she becomes more excited, more anxious, these are becoming light projections on her body. The idea was to actually have another dress, which through intra-body signaling, I don't know if anybody knows, it's like a technology made or developed in MIT, and it's a really fantastic basic technology. Probably the Conductive skin team over there know all about it. It's where you use your body as a circuit and it closes a circuit. So the idea is the girls would hold hands and then they could pass their emotions from one dress to the other. We didn't do it because we didn't have enough time, but it was kind of a nice idea. And the interesting thing about the probes team is we really existed in the cracks of Philip's design. We weren't churning out jugs or kettles or TVs. We were like making art for Philips, and everyone was like walking through the corridor, oh, the probes team, they're kind of, airy-fairy, what are they actually doing? And we used to work in the top floor, which is actually on the lift called the 5+ floor. And probably most of you have seen Being John Malkovich, where they kind of on the 7th floor like this. It was kind of like that. So we would get out of our lift and run to our cupboard and do the kind of probe stuff. And it wasn't until we won this big Time award and we were asked to do an exhibition in Tokyo where everybody, when we would walk through the corridor, oh yeah, the probes team, yeah, they're really great. Actually, they're doing something within Philips. So then we became a fully fledged department. So we really had to prove ourselves the whole time. It was at Philips Design where I met Bart Hess, a collaborator of mine. And we were having all these ideas about how you could apply makeup to the body. We were thinking about scanning it on and printing it on. And at that point, we were working on the electronic tattoo movie, and we didn't have any time to kind of explore our own ideas because we were kind of busy, finishing the deadlines that we were asked to do. So one evening, we just stayed late in the office, and we started finding things, and we would just sort of hold this up to our cheek and then take a photo, and then maybe hold that to the cheekbone there and take a photo. And it literally started like that. We didn't really know what we were doing. It was just materials and sticking it on the body. Then we kind of decided, okay, let's meet every Friday and let's start experimenting. So we would meet in the morning on a Friday, either at my house or Bart's house, and we would go to the Wibra, which is this fantastic cheap shop, which I love. And we would go around the Wibra and we would find balloons or toothpicks or sponges or Afwaschmittel or whatever we kind of thought was nice. And then we would bring them back to my house or his house, and then we would start playing. So we would kind of be in our own little corners. This was sort of our workshop time. So we would come back and kind of do a little workshop, and I'd sit down and stick things to my face with sticky tape and then turn around and say, what about this? And he'd say, yeah. And then he would turn around, yeah. what about this? And so until we would just keep doing that until we kind of convinced ourselves that we found something that we liked. So then when we found something that we liked, we went back to the Wibra and we would buy 500 of those things. So, and it's actually quite funny because the woman, we used to go to the one opposite my house, and the woman that we used to buy them from, we would, at one point, I haven't got the picture here, but we bought like, I don't know, maybe 1,500 balloons, and she's just standing there like this. Beep, beep, beep. Never asked any questions at all. Like, my God, these guys are just going to have the greatest party ever. Never asked any questions. And actually, we never went back and showed any photos, which was a bit of a shame. So, yeah, this one is with pantyhose and balloons. And what is important to say is, before I didn't really see the connection between the work that I was doing at Philips and the work I was doing with Bart. And then I sat down with my dad in Australia because I was going to talk at my university where I studied, and it was a really big thing for me. And I was like, yeah, I don't see the connection. He's like, what? You don't see the connection? And he said, well, I see it as Philips is kind of the science stuff, and the Lucy and Bart is the science fiction. And so I was like, yeah, maybe you've got something there, Dad. So in a way, the stuff that I was doing with Bart was kind of crystallizing the ideas that we were talking about at Philips. And we were talking about things like plastic surgery and monoaesthetic and the rebellion of the ugly and species and human evolution and genetic manipulation. So in a way, we were kind of crystallizing these ideas we were having at Philips, but actually making them low-tech but fast, because unfortunately in bigger companies it takes a longer time. And I'm talking really low-tech, because you can see here I'm wearing Bart's slippers. This is exactly where we did the shot. White background, painted wall, 2 soft boxes, and Bob's your uncle, there's the image. And this one is called Grow On You. I'm going to just show 3 projects. You can see everything on the blog, so I thought it's nice to show stuff that you can't see on the blog. And this one's actually a funny story as well. This is Grow On You, and it's made from Afwaschmittel, washing up liquid, everybody knows that, and food dye. And this also happened on a workshop day at my house, and I was like, Bart, come in. And I filled the sink with the washing up liquid and put a bit of food dye in there, and I was like, wait here. And I was, what about this? And he's like, yeah, that's great. We're going to go for that one. So, okay, he had to go away, and I actually had to go to Philips to drop off a book to Stefano Marzano, the boss there. So I just did my thing. Bart went off. Next day we meet. So I took the book to Philips. And, Stefano Marzano is this lovely man, and he's, very welcoming. Knocked on his door with the book to give to him, and he was like, open the door. Hi, Lucy. And he's standing there. And he just wouldn't look at me. He wouldn't. I was like, what's going on? Stefano, So I just gave him the book and then went off on my way. Clearly he's busy, budget crunches, whatever. So then I went back home, and then I went to brush my teeth, and I looked in the mirror, and my whole face was blue. I looked like death. And I'd walked around the whole afternoon, and nobody had told me. And it was because I put my head in the sink. It was, I think it's quite entertaining. So then the next day we did the workshop, and the amazing thing that we didn't know that was going to happen, which is the great thing about kind of experimentation, is that the food dye was actually heavier than the washing up liquid. So we were getting these amazing gradients. But what was happening is the washing up liquid was moving so fast, we just had to put it on, take the picture. So it was really like capturing this moment in time. And we take ourselves very seriously when we start mass producing. So we go to the Wibra, we come back, and we kick into like mass production. So you can see here we've got the big buckets, a cake mixture. We checked which washing up liquid works better. Actually, the one from Aldi isn't as good as the one from Albert Heijn, probably because it's more expensive. So we tried whether hot water was better, cold water was better. And then we start making our mixture, and then we put it on the body, and we move around and we take some photos. This one's called Germination, and Germination is when you're at school, you make these grass men, and you put sawdust into the pantyhose, and they grow little hair, and you put eyes on them. Maybe you call them potato men here. I don't know. I think it's called grass man. So we wanted to make a grass man. So what we did is we worked like farmers, And we always plan to start very, very neat and tidy. So you can see here we've got the garbage bag, gaffer tape to the floor. This is in my apartment now. And we try and stay very clean. But of course, it's just like in the end, you don't even care. So we went to the pet shop this time, not the Wibbra, and we bought, I think, 8 boxes of this sawdust here on the side. 175 square metres of grass seed, and we stuffed 20 pairs of pantyhose. So we made these huge big textile sausages, and it's it's like clay when you mould it. Really, really light, very, very itchy, but great to mould. And so, yeah, I hung these on Bart, and he posed. And in the beginning, when we started working together and posing, the poses were sort of quite conventional or formal, and then by the end, you're really just pulling as many different poses as you can. So this is Bart kind of becoming this grass man, and at the end, it's always funny at the end, like what you look like. Because actually, we usually do a shoot in one day, and at the end of the day, you're so kind of mentally disturbed sometimes. One time I had all this paper stuck to my face, and you can't really see whether you've made a good image or not, and it's not until the next day that you look in the computer and he rings me or I ring him. Hey, it's a pretty good image we did yesterday. But at the end of the day, you're just like, yeah, see you later, bye, and then crack open a beer and watch TV. Then what we had to do was we had to grow the grass man. So we blew up a small child swimming pool in my living room, and we filled these sausages, we filled the swimming pool with these textile sausages. And I'm not really a gardener or green thumb, so I was a little bit nervous about growing these things because it was my responsibility now. So I went and bought all this grass grower, and when we put the sausages in there, I just covered it in this grower. I was like, can't go wrong, put all this grower on, it's just going to be fine. So the first couple of days, nothing was happening, and I rang Bart and I said, look, it's not going to work, it's such a great idea, but it's not going to work. And then the third day, nothing, and I rang him. I said, I think I've killed it. It's like fluorescent green, this grass grower's still there, and it's not watering, and da-da-da-da. And then on the 4th day, I came out, and then I walked out into the living room. We had this grass green stubble like this, like a beard, all over the textile sausages. And so after 8 days, we had grass. And because now these were my babies, I was really precious about these sausages. And on the morning, I didn't want them to die, so I watered them, which meant that they were so heavy to put on Bart and for him to stand and have them on him. And I think in the end it weighed something like, 90 kilos, whatever. But I don't know if anybody has ever put on a wetsuit before. Yeah, it's like, kind of like you have to cross your legs like this and you pull it up. And it's actually quite difficult. And it was like that, but worse. But also, because they were kind of a bit squishy, you couldn't pull them up too much because then you'd get a hole. And actually what happened was I put a hole in it, which I explain later. So this is what it looked like. Bart standing in a bucket, which is dripping with water because I watered them in the morning because I was scared I was going to kill them. So heavy, a vein is popping out of his head. And because he couldn't stand, I had to put broomsticks up the back of him. So basically what happens, if he wants to fall, he cannot get out of the bucket because it's like wearing a really tight mini skirt. And he basically can't move, so he's just going to fall flat on his face. But the other thing that's really funny is the hole that I put in the sawdust. I'm standing in front of him and his legs are apart, and every minute this sawdust poo just drops out, and I have to try and stop myself from laughing because he's being very, very serious at this point. And so eventually we then take all these photos. Oh no, I didn't even have the final one there. Oh, I cut it out because I only had 15 minutes. You can check it out for yourselves. This one is a photo that we did in January, and I just show you quickly, a little movie. It's part of a book that's actually being published here in Rotterdam, actually. And we were asked to create a specific work for this book, and a philosopher has also written in this book, and we did the artwork. And the interesting thing was that we had to record everything that we were doing during this session, and you can see down the bottom of the book that there's all these sentences, so the whole time we're recording. And I mean, it took us maybe 4 or 5 hours to stick all those toothpicks on, so you're not really discussing, unfortunately we're not discussing really interesting things like what you were talking about. We were discussing like people's sex lives and whether Ricky should be with Esther and, you know, whether you'd have a sex change. And of course you start switching off. And so when you read that content at the end on the book, it's really embarrassing. And especially when the girl who was translating the audio was one of the girls that we were talking about in the not in a bad way, we were just discussing her sex life, so it was fine. So that's that. How am I going for time? 3 minutes left. Okay, that's perfect. So now I have a studio in the red light district, which I moved in June. I'm working for myself. I'm not at Phillips anymore, and Bart and I are only working on kind of academic, or we're calling it touring, so when we go touring. So now I'm setting up my own work, and it's really, really daunting, but also really, really exciting. And this is one of the first projects that I did. I took a break. I had 3 months off and came back and decided to stick all these drawing pins on my face. And I made a short little movie, if it's here. And this is, I'm really excited that I can show this because it's kind of allowed in a lab situation that you can show unfinished work. So actually all the work that I'm showing you now is unfinished, and I'm sort of deciding what I'm going to do with it next. But I'm really fascinated with skin and becoming more and more fascinated with science. This is a project that I did with a friend of mine for Amsterdam Fashion Week. And actually you can see this on my blog, so I'm not going to show you it all. But this is using Q-tips, you know, the cotton buds that you clean your ears with. And we layered them up and made loads of swatches. Actually, Lobka, who's here, you helped us with the making of the Q-tips. And it's really amazing the way that this works is we were spraying it with food dye, and it just keeps absorbing the colour over and over and over again. And then you spray it with clear water and it comes out again. You can start all over again. So this was very exciting for me. And yeah, you can see here like what happens when you start overlaying it. It really becomes like a reptile skin. It was really, really nice material. I'm really fascinated now with colour and water. I don't really know where the fascination has come from. And this is another project where I've wrapped another culprit in tubes. And it's quite funny because my studio's in the red light district, and if you hear the audio of this video, it's suck, 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 blow, blow softer, suck, 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 blow, suck. Okay, good. Yep. Okay, suck again. So it's quite funny audio with the video. I'm working at the moment with an artist in Hong Kong, and he's asked me to develop 12 costumes for a superhero circus installation. So I'm just going crazy with materials, and actually have a really good shop here called Scrap XL. Fantastic. I went crazy there and filled a whole car full and took it back to Amsterdam. I'm waiting for them to open a shop in Amsterdam. She keeps promising me, but I don't know. So these are using different kinds of foams. But I also think what's interesting is when the body starts moving, and actually, I can talk a lot about body and movement, but how the material starts to react, and actually here it just kind of exploded off the body, and in a way then it became something else. It becomes more of an animation, which is really nice for me. Now I'm just going to totally freestyle here for the last 1 or 2 minutes. My fascination with science and physics, maybe it's always been there, but I feel like it's really coming out now. So this is an exploration I was doing with water inside balloons and with pantyhose. And of course, being a dancer, I'm really interested in tendons and muscles and capillaries and cells. And actually, I went for a head scan 2 weeks ago because I now have, I'm the proud owner of an implant in my mouth. And I'm also having a cow bone inserted in my jaw. This is really exciting for me because I feel now that I'm kind of becoming, I don't know, this sort of testing lab for technology. But when I went to this head scan, I came out of the scan and I saw my skull rotating in 3D on the computer screen. I almost wet myself. It was just, I knew when I woke up in the morning something good was going to happen. You know, sometimes when you have that feeling. And I had this feeling, and I spoke to this man who was this radiologist, and I was like, you know what, when I woke up this morning, I knew something good was going to happen. He's like, well, the day's early. I was like, whoa, it just can't get any better than this. And basically, I wish I could show you now, but I can't because I'm using a Mac and not a PC. But this is my brain, and I can move in and out of my brain through these sections. And for me, maybe if it was you, you would also be pretty freaked out because this is where it's all happening. So now I'm starting to think, okay, how can this start to come out in my work? And I think I'm quite immediate with inspiration. And actually, I just did a photo shoot yesterday, which is starting to look at, I don't want to call it what it is, but it's starting to look at skin and prosthetic and tubes and technology. So it's really, for me, quite immediate, this brain scan that I had. And at the same time, this is just in the beginning, but this is, I went and talked at Hyper Island. Do you know this school in Sweden? Very, very cool school. Doing crazy interaction stuff. And this guy put his hand up and asked if he could, like, build my website. And I was like, oh, I'm not too sure about that because it's, remote. So now we're just testing, and I'm kind of pinging ideas back to him, and he's playing with me. So I'm thinking when I send him those DICOM files of my skull, then things are going to get really interesting. So now I'm still really unsure where it's all going, but I'm just really happy playing with materials and kind of combining maybe the technology's coming back in, but in a different way from when I was working at Philips. So thanks very much for listening and for having me. Cheers.